West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
But first, there's a key story about January 6th that's been, to a certain degree, hiding in plain sight all this time. And we're learning more about it in ways that I think suggest something new, a newer dimension to what happened on that day. It's the story of how tensions rose between Donald Trump, the president, and his vice president, Mike Pence, as Trump attempted to get Pence to do his bidding and overturn the election for him, effectively, unilaterally, and lawlessly. Now, we know the basic facts about the moment when Pence's refusal to comply and subvert the will of the voters came to a head. But the significance of that scene has taken a much darker tone as we've learned more details about it. So on the morning of January 6th, right, Trump made one last appeal to Pence at the huge rally at the Ellipse, although it sounded, frankly, more like a threat.
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
We then watched as the mob, at Trump's urging, marched to the Capitol, where they broke in and ransacked the building, assaulting police officers, roaming the halls, chanting, "Hang Mike Pence! Hang Mike Pence!" Some of them even erected a gallows with a noose outside of the building. And as the danger became apparent, the Secret Service evacuated the vice president from the Senate chamber, where he was presiding over the election certification proceedings as stipulated in the Constitution and American law. Now, we know, thanks to reporting from Washington Post journalists Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker, that Pence first went to his ceremonial office at the Capitol, where he was protected by Secret Service agents, but vulnerable because the second floor office had windows, and those windows could be breached, and the intruding thugs had gained control of the building. Pence refused two requests from the agents in charge of his detail to evacuate the building, saying, quote, "I'm not leaving the Capitol." As Leonnig and Rucker write, the last thing the vice president wanted was the people attacking the Capitol to see his 20-car motorcade fleeing. That would only vindicate their insurrection. The third time the Secret Service asked, it was more of an order than a request. They moved Pence down a staircase to a secure subterranean area where his armored limousine awaited. ABC News reporter Jonathan Karl described the scene there in that subterranean chamber as he saw it in official White House photos that Pence has not allowed to be published.
He was in a loading dock in an underground parking garage beneath the Capitol complex. No place to sit, no desk, no chairs, no nothing. He was in this concrete, parking garage, and with his family. And this is the Vice President of the United States, and he's holed up in a basement. One of them is his chief of staff, Mark Short, showing him his phone, and it's the tweet of Trump saying Mike Pence didn't have the courage. This is the guy who fled the rioters, and Trump is saying he didn't have the courage. And you can see it kind of looks like Pence is grimacing, but you can never really tell.
Okay, now listen to Jamie Raskin, member of the January 6th committee, who's been investigating this for 9 months, describe What happened next?
So when his Secret Service agents, including one of them who was carrying the nuclear football with him, were chased out by these neo-fascists, and they ran down to some still undisclosed mysterious place in the Capitol, he uttered what I think are the 6 most chilling words of this entire thing I've seen so far. He said, "I'm not getting in that car."
That's the moment it all came down to, after all the pressure from Trump and his allies to get Mike Pence to do their bidding and keep Donald Trump in office. The insurrectionist mob had breached the building. The Secret Service hustles Pence down into the underground parking garage, and they want to take him away from the Capitol, but he refuses to go. Why does he refuse going? Well, Pence's own chief of staff, Mark Short, says the vice president did not want his evacuation to be the indelible image sent around the world.
He said, "I'm not leaving." And the reason he said he's not leaving is because he said he did not want our adversaries across the globe to see a 15-car motorcade fleeing the Capitol. I think he exerted enormous leadership under enormous pressure. And I think he, again, despite efforts to have him evacuate, he's like, I don't want that visual for the world to see. I'm going to stay here.
Okay, so that's what Mark Short says, right? This is an image he doesn't want to project to the world, and so I'm going to stay here for symbolic purposes, essentially. But, Pence was not the only one who did not want to leave the Capitol complex that day, despite the terror unfolding. For example, Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego of Arizona described another immediate tactical reason for staying put.
I saw a bunch of buses pull up, and they were buses to evacuate us. And let me tell you, in coups, when you leave the Capitol, you've lost. And so I started texting every member I could in all of our text chains. I'm like, do not leave. Like, if they tell you to leave, like, do not leave. Like, you're safe for staying here. Like, we get on those buses. There's no guarantee we're ever coming back.
I've been thinking about that sentence for a long time. We get on those buses, there's no guarantee we're coming back. So that's Ruben Gallego's thought, right? A coup's happening. If the legislators leave, all bets are off. So occupying the physical space of the building, in Gallego's estimation, was actually key to repelling the coup. That's very different than the PR ramifications or the symbolic image of the motorcade. That's the darker interpretation of what was going on when Mike Pence refused to leave, right? That he wasn't just concerned about how the image of the vice president fleeing would look to the world. No, he was actually also concerned about maintaining control of the government, about the American constitutional order, that his role on January 6th was to preside over the peaceful transfer of power. And if the riotous mob, propelled by Donald Trump, succeeded in driving him physically away from the Capitol where he had that duty, he may not have been able to return to finish the job of overseeing the peaceful transfer of power. That would have allowed the coup to actually take place. And that interpretation, the far darker one, the more dangerous one, the wow, we came close one, that interpretation looks more and more likely as new facts come to light, particularly about the Secret Service's role on January 6th. So on Friday, new testimony released by the committee revealed that a senior Secret Service official warned Mark Meadows of potential violence ahead of January 6th. And Hugo Lowell of The Guardian is reporting that the committee appears to have been examining that official, named Anthony Ornato. A source tells Lowell that Trump gave Ornato a big White House job, Deputy White House Chief of Staff for Operations, in part because of his loyalty. Now, Ornato previously helped coordinate Trump's infamous march through Lafayette Square for a photo op with the Bible and assisted in planning of many Trump campaign rallies. On January 6th, he was overseeing Secret Service movements. Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker report that while Pence was in that secure underground area of the Capitol, Ornato, told Pence's national security advisor, Keith Kellogg, that the vice president's security detail was planning to move him to Joint Base Andrews. And Kellogg replied, again, this is a reporting of Leonnig and Rucker, "You can't do that, Tony. Leave him where he's at. He's got a job to do. I know you guys too well. You'll fly him to Alaska if you have a chance. Don't do it." Well, I don't know. That sure sounds like it was a Trump loyalist in charge of Pence's security movements attempting to help Donald Trump effectuate his coup by removing the vice president from the building where he was to oversee the peaceful transfer of power. Congressman Jamie Raskin lays it out clearly.
The Secret Service agents who presumably are reporting to Trump's Secret Service agents were trying to spirit him off of the campus. And he said, I'm not getting in that car until we count the Electoral College votes. He knew exactly what this inside coup they had planned for was going to do. This was not a coup directed at the president. It was a coup directed by the president against the vice president and against the Congress.
And so that's why Pence's 6 words in that moment, I'm not getting in that car, were about so much more than just the image it would send to the world. It appears they were about the fundamental desire from the ex-president and his loyalists to, again, essentially in that moment, rupture the entire constitutional order in order to install Donald Trump by force against the will of the people.
It is Tuesday, the 26th of April of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Oh, just a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Always has, and it always will. At least as far as we know. What is permanence anyway, huh? Okay, well, it's Tuesday. We're well on our way to this week going on, because that's how weeks go. And we're at the second day of it, or the third if you start on Sunday. Just saying. But looks like, well, Elon Musk has bought, for all intents and purposes, Twitter. It still has to, I don't know, clear SEC muster. And I was wondering about that, though. Musk is already under investigation for manipulating stock by using Twitter already, just by merely posting, and now he owns it? Okay, that's one way to get away with your crimes. I don't know. It seems to have worked for Trump. The only way he could get away with all the crimes he had committed, because the hammer was coming down. Let's be clear. The only way he could get away with it was getting installed as President of the United States. And who's going to, throw the President of the United States in jail? Huh? Partisan, isn't it? I do love the argument that we can't really draw a criminal indictment against Trump and all of his cronies, because that would be so partisan. Now this is the group who planned a violent overthrow of the United States of America with the help of a hostile foreign power. And I might put an S in the parenthetical at the end of power, because we should not forget about certain members of the Middle East, like the Sauds, maybe even the UAE. Anyway, I do love the fact that we can't investigate them for that, because it would be partisan. What's more partisan than trying to overthrow the United States of America, let alone violently? Come on. Oh, yeah, now their excuse is after their foot soldiers were their foot soldiers were members of Congress. They were placed there to pounce as soon as Pence got off the premises. Okay? And Grassley was going to take Mike Pence's position and say, nope, election's out the window. Trump won, and we have proof because it was stolen. And the way that we have proof it was stolen is because they say that other guy won. They're stealing it from us. Okay. That's not how it works, folks. I know that many of those maggots out there had never been involved in any kind of politics before, even in high school, which is usually, and I got to say, the usual definition of American politics is pretty much what we did in high school. All the petty grievances, all the petty retributions. I'm going to tear down your banner and put up mine. So, I know that it comes as a shock to those who have never taken part or even considered what it is that is American government. What is that? So I hear this litany a lot. Oh, well, we don't follow the rules. We make up our own. No shit, Sherlock. Do you know why we have government? Is to keep people like you at bay who just want to make it up as you go along. Let's reinvent the wheel. By first denying that the wheel should have ever been invented in the first place because it's a commie plot to steal our kids, eat them. Probably before or after the sexual trafficking, I've never been able to figure it out. We're baby eaters, but we're also sexually trafficking kids. Which is it? Is this like some sort of necropedile weirdness? That's a scary thought since every accusation is a confession. And I've seen their barbecues made out of toilets before. Commode? I have a picture of it, and it is frightening. They even have a cooler for beer. The tank in the back is filled with ice, and that's where they keep their beer, and then they grill on the bowl. Oh, my God. That's repurposing, but I don't know if it's a good purpose. No, it is not. So they want to reinvent the wheel by first denying that the wheel should even exist. And anybody who does wants to, change the sex of your kids. When really what it is that they're losing all of their targets for their bigotry. First we had black people crammed down our throats. Now little green people is too much. No more little green people. Little green people are trying to get into our bathrooms. Change our kids into little green people. Yeah. That's right. And the Democratic Party is giving them equal protection and due process. That's right. Because we're not talking about the Jolly Green Giant. I mean, come on. He's a celebrity green person. Highly identifiable. We're talking about the common little green person. Okay, the one who just gets up in the morning and wonders, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, like the rest of us. All right. So, they have nothing left to rail against, and now we're taking little green people away from them. What do they have left? Trans kids. We're going to go after the trans kids now and their parents. They went after the parents of the little green people. Yeah, child abuse, they called it. Child abuse. Only a child abuser would let their kid be a little green kid. Yeah, well, I don't know. They chose it. That's what they want to do. Let them have the lead. Actually, that's Texas and, it's Florida. That's Florida's reason for invoking this Don't Say Gay laws because of a lie about the parent involved with their kid being transitioned at school, where emails show that she actually approached the school and said, what do I do? Can you help me out? And there was a long-running conversation between the school and this parent, and the parent concluded, well, let's let my daughter or let's let my child take the lead on this, and we'll see what they want to do. And DeSantis took that and said, schools are trying to change the sex of our kids against our will. Parents should have a choice. Yeah, they have a choice. Except when it comes to a woman's health care, her own personal health care. Now, you don't have a choice on that. You don't have a choice on what kind of books that you can get at the library because they're burning them. And if they find a librarian who hasn't burned the right kinds of books, they burn her or him too. And now the librarians are revolting, and I mean that in a good way. I've known a lot of revolting librarians. Yes, some of them are even family. Actually, that's the name of their union, the Revolting Librarians. or group. Maybe, I don't know if it's a union, but it's a union of like-minded librarians who are revolting against the, I don't know, what is it? The Nazi book banning contingent of America? We have to put up with that? Jeez. Okay, well, I guess I have rambled on enough. We do have a curated show for you, and yes, there is a reason, and we all knew why at the very beginning when we heard that Mike Pence was not going to get in that car. I just love it. I'm not getting in the car, Tim. Tim is his Secret Service person. I'm not getting in the car, Tim. We've all seen that movie. Every single one. Even, I mean, when we saw the documentary with Jimmy Hoffa, we're saying, like, don't get in the car. Because they're not coming back. Okay. Now, I've heard some excuses from, maybe more right-wing aficionado types who are trying to poo-poo that this insurrection ever happened. It was just their constitutional right to violently overthrow the government of the United States on January 6th. Okay, that's essentially their argument. But they said no one was going to get killed. They're just going to drive them away from the facility. Yeah, well, I don't know. If you're going to go visit Jimmy Hoffa, JFK, or even Huey Long, you're not coming back. Nope, you're not. So, long way to get to that little joke there, huh? Is that a joke? Okay, we have this curated show. And yes, I'm not getting in the car, Tim. That's going to be a meme that I'm going to use. As long as we have Twitter, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. Right now, I'm not leaving because, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. It's not a done deal, even though it's a done deal. Okay, that's how it works. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, the White House warned Congress that without funding, the U.S. will lose out on COVID treatments. Yeah, we were first in line because America is always first in line, and now we're going to lose our place in line. So much for American exceptionalism, eh? Well, we know what that means is that the Republicans in Congress are mucking things up because they got to make Joe look bad. And if it means losing another million people in the process, hey, collateral damage is what you kind of need if you're going to use American people as cannon fodder to hold on to power or regain your hold on power. Let's see, with the midterms looming, one of Joe Biden's closest aides is leaving the White House to take on a role as senior advisor to the DNC. Well, it's about time somebody took it over. And the White House seeks more power to counter the nefarious use of drones in the United States. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the co-leader of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's party urged former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder, whose ties to the Russian energy industry have left him increasingly isolated at home, to leave the party. Get out. And far-right Putin darling Marine Le Pen is now plotting to take over the French Parliament after her decisive loss to Macron. I just got to interject here. Only in America do we look at Macron getting almost 60% of the vote as barely squeaking by. Only in America. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of the chat room link is the link to our Patreon page, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. We need the money. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's true. And Elon Musk can spend, what was it, 480-some billion? What was it? 48 billion. Some god-awful amount of money. You know, he offered to give the UN $6 billion if they showed him, you know, how they would spend it to end world hunger. And when they gave a detailed budget, never heard from the guy again. But he can spend $48 billion on a vanity project. That's indeed what it is. And some have accused us of this being, of Netroots Radio being purely a vanity project. But I'll tell you, when you're punching the Nazis, there's no time for vanity. All right? We're not doing it to look good. We're not doing it because it appeals to some sort of, I don't know, ego. No. We're actually here because in our small way, we are a bulwark against these hostile foreign powers and domestic trying to take over and destroy the United States of America and representative democracy worldwide. We will not let it happen. But we need money to be able to pay our bills so we can sort of be clandestine in our efforts because we like to fly under the radar. You get a little bit too visible, next thing you know, yeah, you are really invisible. 6 feet under generally is what that means. But all the dire consequences aside, this is truly what we consider to be our civic duty, and we have you to be thankful for in allowing us and helping us achieve that civic duty. Thank you. If you would like to follow I should have mentioned, if you can afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso type coffee drink once a month through our Patreon page, that is how it helps us fulfill our civic duty. And your generosity is greatly appreciated. Please help us. All right. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that posted up on Twitter for now. Are we going to go to, what's the other one? Counter Social? Social Counter? Counter Social. That's it. I like the Social Counter. Hi, I'd like to have a demi-tassa here at the Social Counter. Okay, here. But nonetheless, I do post the show notes and links there, and the show notes and links are where you can find the actual reportage because, hey, that's where the actual reportage is. We just kind of riff. Anyway, you can do that, and you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, really wherever podcasts can be found. And, of course, now you can find the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library for the past 11 years at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Okay. They tried to get rid of us. They even tried, you know what? We even had a break-in where they stole our broadcasting computer. I like to say they, because it could have just been a random act. But it seemed a little too cute by half, if you know what, if you get my drift. But they tried. Can't shut us up. They thought they would wait us out. It's been 11 years. We're still going. All right, let's get into this first offering here at the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And it is, of course, out of the Associated Press. And I'll just remind folks once again, when Reuters can confirm that they don't have deep Russian ties, we'll go back and source Reuters again. But I have a little bit of concern about Reuters right now. So we are sort of stuck with the AP as our major go-to. Yes, our anchor at the mall. All right, Zeke Miller from the Associated Press brings us this first offering. For the much of the past 2 years, America has been first in line for COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. Now, as drug makers develop the next generation of therapies, the White House is warning that if Congress doesn't act urgently, which is a nice way of saying get up off your ass, the U.S. will have to take a number. Already, The congressional stalemate over virus funding has forced the federal government to curtail free treatment for the uninsured, just like the Republicans planned it, and to ration monoclonal antibody supplies, just as the Republicans planned it. And Biden administration officials are expressing increasing alarm that the U.S. is also losing out on critical opportunities to secure booster doses and new antiviral pills that could help the country maintain its re-emerging sense of normalcy, even in the face of potential new variants and case spikes. They force us to act like everything's normal, and then when we recognize that it's not, they won't let us mitigate the problem. Just to make Joe look bad, they are willing to infect people with a deadly disease and let them die. Months ago, the White House began warning that the country had spent through the money in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that was dedicated directly to COVID-19 response. It requested an additional $22.5 billion for what it called urgent needs in both the U.S. and abroad. But Elon Musk can spend $48 on Twitter, and no one bats an eye. Brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Of course, Zeke is from the Associated Press. One of President Joe Biden's closest aides is leaving the White House to take on a role as senior advisor to the Democratic National Committee as the White House looks to bolster its political effort to help Democrats ahead of what is expected to be a challenging midterm election. Cedric Richmond, a former Democratic member of Congress from Louisiana, served as co-chair of Biden's 2020 presidential campaign before joining the White House as senior advisor and director of the Office of Public Engagement. A Biden advisor said Richmond will take on a role similar to the one he served on Biden's campaign, including fundraising, outreach, and serving as a surrogate for the president and the Democrats down the ticket. There are few people more capable of helping us continue to build on our success and deliver our message as we head into the midterm election, said DNC Chair Jamie Harrison in a statement. We look forward to having Cedric join our already strong team as we continue to work in close partisanship with the White House and our sister committees to protect and expand our Democratic majorities. The Democratic Party is all in and leaving nothing to chance. Well, then let's all get to work. Of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The Biden administration is calling on Congress to expand authority for federal and local governments to take action to counter the nefarious use in the U.S. of drones, which are becoming a growing security concern and nuisance. The White House released an action plan that calls for expanding the number of agencies that can track and monitor drones flying in their airspace. It calls for establishing a list of government-authorized direction or detection equipment that federal and local authorities can purchase, and creating a national training center on countering the malicious use of drones. The White House said in a statement, it was critical that Congress adopt legislation to close critical gaps in existing law and policy that currently impede government and law enforcement from protecting the American people and our vital security interests. The federal government-wide focus comes as the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, projects that more than 2 million drones will be in circulation in the U.S. by 2024, and as availability of detection and mitigation technologies, including jamming systems, are limited under current law. The White House plan calls for expanding existing counter-drone authorities for the Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, Defense, Energy, as well as the CIA and NASA in limited situations. Yeah, limited. The proposal also seeks to expand drone detection authorities for state, local, territorial, and tribal law enforcement agencies and critical infrastructure owners and operators. The proposal also calls for establishing a 6-year pilot program for a small number of state, local, territorial, tribal law enforcement agencies to take part in a drone detection and mitigation operations under supervision of the Justice Department and Homeland Security. Currently, no state or local agencies have such authority. In the U.S., drones have become increasingly ubiquitous and useful tools for law enforcement agencies, agricultural use, commercial photography, as well as hobbyists. But there are growing concerns as well. In January of 2019, Newark Liberty International Airport halted all landings and diverted planes for over an hour after a potential drone sighting nearby. Smugglers had used drones to deliver illegal drugs into the country. Oh, so that's the reason we have to give up our rights and privileges as U.S. citizens. And Major League Baseball has had several incidents since 2020 where games have been delayed after privately owned drones have been flown onto the playing field. In 2015, there were 2 separate incidents in which drones crashed on the White House grounds. Federal and local authorities say drones have also been used to smuggle contraband, including cell phones, and drugs into prisons. All right. The counter-drone plan calls for establishing a mechanism to coordinate research development, testing, and evaluation of detection and mitigation technology across the federal government. The White House says it also wants to work with Congress to enact a criminal statute that sets standards for legal and illegal use of drones and bolster cooperation with other countries on counter-drone technologies. The Ukraine had a robust drone industry, and it's somewhat saved their asses against the Russians. I'm just saying. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from the break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Joanna Thompson. In 2018, a group of astronomers from Yale discovered something odd: 2 galaxies that had almost no dark matter. The observation caused a commotion in scientific circles because it seemed to fly in the face of everything that astrophysicists thought they knew about galaxy formation. But researchers may have just discovered the mechanism that makes these so-called dark matter deficient galaxies possible. In astronomy, matter comes in two flavors: dark matter and baryons.
Yeah, baryons is a fancy way of saying regular matter.
That's Betsy Adams, an astronomer at Asteron, the Netherlands Institute for Radio Astronomy, who was not involved in the research. Unlike baryonic matter, dark matter is invisible.
Because the point of dark matter is that we can't see it. There's no radiation from it. We don't observe it with our telescopes. What we observe is the baryons, the regular stuff. And so to infer the presence of dark matter is we look for its effects gravitationally.
Dark matter acts like the unseen glue that holds galaxies together. Around 85% of an average galaxy consists of dark matter, and without it, astronomers think that most galaxies wouldn't have enough gravity to take shape. Stumbling across a galaxy without dark matter is a little like finding a hurricane with no wind. So where the heck did the Yale astronomers' dark matterless galaxies come from? That question caught the attention of Jorge Moreno, an astronomer at Pomona College in Claremont, California.
Many of us were freaking out. It's like there is a major challenge to our paradigm.
Moreno is part of a team working on an expansive, highly detailed computer program designed to simulate merging galaxies.
This is what we call a cosmological simulation. You simulate a big chunk of the universe. You create a mini universe in your computer.
The simulation he works with follows the standard model of physics, which is rich in dark matter. But not every physicist is convinced that the standard model is correct.
And there was another camp of people who said, you know what, it's time to just get rid of this model. This dark matter, this idea is a nice idea, but it's not really consistent with observations. It's time to put it in the bin and think about something else. Maybe we need to modify the laws of physics or something like that.
Haibo Yu, a theoretical particle physicist at the University of California, Riverside, fell into that camp.
So actually, me and my collaborators, my group, we wrote a paper saying that there's an indication maybe the new physics, which beyond the standard kind of dark matter theory is needed. It's better to explain these two galaxies.
But Moreno's simulation offers a solution without throwing away conventional physics. Initially, his team was focused on massive galaxies. But when they looked more closely at the simulation's tiny dwarf galaxies, a surprise popped out. 7 of them lacked dark matter. Each of these low dark matter dwarves orbited a supermassive galaxy, the way a moon might orbit a planet. Moreno found that the 7 galaxies hadn't formed without dark matter. Instead, their dark matter had been gradually stripped away as they crossed paths with their supermassive counterpart.
We didn't design the simulation to find for these things. They just appeared. It preserves the paradigm. We basically say you don't need to throw away the idea of dark matter because we use a simulation with dark matter and we were able to create galaxies without it.
For you, it was an exciting find.
It's remarkable work, I should say. I mean, it's a great success, I would say. Congratulations to the authors. And also, their result actually do not exclude the possibility to have new physics.
The next step, according to Adams of Asteron, is to verify Moreno's results with observations.
And the authors of the paper did something that I very much liked, which is they made a prediction. They said, we think that up to 30% of central galaxies in this mass range should have dark matter deficient satellite galaxies. So it would be a lot of work observationally to do that, but you could then go test that.
And for Moreno, the research takes on a personal dimension.
I have indigenous roots, especially along the border of the U.S. and Mexico. And I have a friend, he's a professor of physics in Texas, and he's Cherokee. And he told me that the Cherokee tribe has 7 clans. So I told him, hey, can you ask the elders if they give me permission to use the names? And they said yes.
He named the 7 dark matter deficient galaxies after these clans: Bird, Deer, Longhair, Paint, Wild Potato, Wolf, and Blue.
The reason this resonates with me, and I think it will resonate with any person of indigenous ancestry, is because that's basically what happened to us. Like, in the process of colonization, we lost our language, we lost our traditions. Like, I don't know what my music is. I have a European name, I speak European languages, but I'm still here, and we're still here. And I feel like these galaxies are like that. They didn't assimilate, and they weren't destroyed. They confronted the Goliath, and they're still here, and they're surviving.
For 60 Second Science, I'm Joanna Thompson.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Good eating habits developed in childhood can last a lifetime, but getting children to eat their fruits and vegetables is a common problem. Eating them adds important nutrients, helps control weight, and reduces the risks for many serious illnesses. Children in the U.S. are eating more fruit. However, 60% of children get fewer fruits than recommended, and 93% don't get enough vegetables. Childcare, schools, and school districts can help change this by meeting or exceeding federal nutrition standards for meals and snacks, including fruits and vegetables wherever food is offered, and helping children learn about and taste fruits and vegetables. At home, parents can eat a variety of fruits and vegetables with their children and provide them as snacks, even if it takes many tries. Also, parents can include their children when shopping for, growing, and preparing fruits and vegetables. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Abraham Lincoln tried to revive and renew political principles that defined America at its birth in 1776. At a speech in 1854 at Peoria, Illinois, Lincoln said, "Let us readopt the Declaration of Independence, and with it the practices and policy which harmonize with it." At Independence Hall in Philadelphia on February 22, 1861, Lincoln said, "I have never had a feeling politically that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence." Lincoln's understanding of American constitutionalism was based on principles expressed in the Declaration of Independence. He believed the Constitution was meant to fulfill the ideas of equality, liberty, and government by consent of the people in the 1776 founding document. In his actions as president and citizen, Lincoln attempted to preserve the founding political principles and to bring them more fully and justly into the lives of Americans. Thus, he began the process through which slavery was abolished in the United States. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. In 1948, gold was discovered at John Suter's mill in California. As word spread, fortune seekers from all across the United States and across the world flocked to California in what became known as the Gold Rush. This included thousands from China. Many of the Chinese miners planned to return home with the gold they mined. As the easily accessible gold became more and more scarce due to the rush, resentment grew against foreign miners. In 1850, California passed the Foreign Miners Tax, charging those who came from outside the United States $20 a month. On this day in labor history, the year was 1862. The California legislature passed an act to further limit Chinese miners. The official title was an act to protect free white labor against competition with Chinese coolie labor and to discourage the immigration of the Chinese into the state of California. The word coolie referred to unskilled laborers from China and the Indian subcontinent. It was also often used as a derogatory term for Chinese people. The act implemented new taxes and licensing requirements on Chinese miners. The steep taxes led many Chinese to leave mining. Nearly 12,000 Chinese workers found employment with the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. They performed extremely dangerous work laying the track through the Rocky Mountains. Yet, when the railroad project was completed, the Chinese workers were excluded from the celebrations. They were also not allowed to ride on the trains that crossed the continent for the first time. Anti-Chinese racism continued to grow. 20 years after the passage of the California law, the federal government passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. This law prohibited the immigration of Chinese labor. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high in the mid-60s, a bit cooler than what we had yesterday, though I suspect we might be bumping up above 70 like we did yesterday. Sun with clouds mixed throughout the day, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, cloudy skies tonight with lows in the mid-40s, winds continuing out of the northwest at 5 to 10, and then sunshine and clouds mixed tomorrow. Also, we're expecting to be in the mid-60s, which I suspect we might be a tad higher. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And we do have a forecast of a bit of rain starting tomorrow night and maybe continuing for a few days, though that is always subject to change. Grass pollen is rated as moderate right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. Oh, I forgot to mention that we have not had an update on the coronavirus infections here in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon, and we should be getting them sometime after showtime, obviously. And but I'll just remind you, since the end of Friday, confirmed cases stand at 428,070, and our deceased stands at 528, and I suspect both those numbers will be increasing, as they always have. All right, so grass pollen is moderate. The air quality index for the region is good at 43 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is high, inching up another notch to level 7. Take care. Slather the SP 5000. That's a little bit high. All right, wear a hat at least, please. Barometric pressure is holding steady again. It was holding steady yesterday, this time at 30.17 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 90%. I'll spit it out. All right, so weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 58 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 60 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 71 degrees and fair. Kyiv is 58 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 66 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 81 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 74 degrees and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 64 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees, partly cloudy with a fog advisory on the bay and offshore, so small craft take care of the larger craft. They're coming your way. And New York, New York is 55 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Gear Molson of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. The co-leader of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's party said yesterday, Monday, that former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder, whose ties to the Russian energy industry have left him increasingly isolated at home, should leave the party. Saskia Esken, one of the two co-leaders of Scholz's center-left Social Democrats, said in an interview with Deutschlandfunk Radio that Gerhard Schroeder has been acting for many years now only as a businessman, and we should stop seeing him as an elder statesman, as a former chancellor. He earns his money with work for Russian state companies. Asked whether Schroeder should leave the party, Esken replied, he should. Schroeder is chairman of the supervisory board of the Russian state energy company Rosneft and has also been involved with the Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline projects. Oh, tell us more. He has ignored calls from the party and from Scholz to give up those posts. The head of his office recently quit, and Schroeder, age 78, who led the country from 98 to 2005, has few defenders left in Germany. At a news conference later yesterday, Monday, Esken made clear that comments by Schroeder to the New York Times on atrocities in the Ukrainian town of Bucha made Schroeder's position even less tenable. Schroeder was quoted as saying that the matter, quote, has to be investigated. But he didn't think the orders would have come from Russian President Vladimir Putin, his longtime friend. His defense of Vladimir Putin against the accusation of war crimes is absurd, Esken said. Giving up his Russian energy posts would have been necessary to salvage his reputation as a former and once successful chancellor. But unfortunately, he did not follow this advice, she said.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Elaine Ganley of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. French far-right leader Marine Le Pen gathered her party's troops yesterday, Monday, not to mourn her loss on Sunday in the French presidential election, but to plot how to orchestrate a victory in June's parliamentary vote and capture a majority of seats in the National Assembly. Centrist President Emmanuel Macron beat her 58.5 to 41.5% to win re-election on Sunday, but Le Pen produced her highest ever level of support in her 3 attempts to become France's leader. That gave the 53-year-old nationalist momentum as she charged into what is called the third round of voting. hoping to turn the tables on Macron's majority in Parliament. Le Pen called a national meeting of her far-right National Rally Party. French media reports that Le Pen told party officials she would seek to renew representing her working-class stronghold in northern France. It could not be immediately confirmed. Indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.